Hello everyone, I welcome you to this channel, The Sword of the Spirit, and I'm so happy to have you listening to me. For about 2 weeks now, we've been looking at false claims by Muslims. Some things the Muslims say that are false, and this has to do with the Christian religion, what they accuse the Christians of that are false. There are so many things. As I said last week, so we'll be taking them bit by bit. We've seen that Deuteronomy chapter 18, which the Muslims claim was talking about Muhammad, was not talking about Muhammad. That passage was referring to Jesus, and I've given reasons why. And last week we also saw that the Muslims, they claim that the Bible has been corrupted, and we saw last week that it is impossible for the Bible to have been corrupted. If the Bible has been corrupted, then Islam would not even stand a minute, because the Quran gives credence to the Bible. In fact, in Surah chapter 10 verse 94, the Quran makes it clear that the Quran should be verified or confirmed by the Bible, the books that has been revealed before, which are the Torah, the Zabur, the Injil. All these are in our current Bible. So if the Muslims want to really know that if the Quran is the word of God, they should pick up the Bible and read the Bible. It is so sad that Muslims do not read the Bible. And if at all some of them read the Bible, they read the Bible to want to fight with the Christians. But those who search the Bible diligently with a sincere heart will see reasons to become Christians. Today I want us to see another false claim of the Muslim, and this has to do with the crucifixion of Jesus. It is a fact that Jesus actually walked on this earth. Jesus came to this earth, he walked on this earth, and he was a good man. The Quran makes it clear that he ascended up to heaven. He ascended to meet God. And in Christianity, we also know that he ascended to meet with the Father. But the Muslims claim that Jesus was not crucified at all. Jesus was not crucified at all. That he just ascended. Some believe he died and resurrected. Some believe he ascended. Although there are surah that point to the fact that Jesus died, was buried, and resurrected. For example, Surah 19 verse 33 that says, "And peace be upon me on the day of my birth." This is Jesus talking here in this surah. "The day of my demise, and the day I shall be raised up alive." So interesting. So in this surah is saying Jesus died, was buried, and resurrected. Say, "The day of my birth, the day of my demise, and the day I shall be raised up alive." So if Jesus actually died, was buried, and resurrected, and the Quran claims this, it means that salvation is still only in Jesus, because he's the only one who has ever died and resurrected. Muhammad died and never resurrected. No prophet has ever died and resurrected the way Jesus did. So Jesus died, was buried, and resurrected. And this is in Surah 19 verse 33. However, in Surah chapter 4 verse 157, which is the main verse that the Muslims use to claim that Jesus was not crucified, it says, "And for their saying," which is the Jews were saying this, "we slew the Messiah, Jesus son of Mary, the messenger of God. Though they did not slay him, nor did they crucify him, but it appeared so unto them. Those who differ concerning him are in doubt thereof. They have no knowledge of it, but follow only conjecture. They slew him not for certain." So this Surah chapter 4 verse 157, is saying that Jesus was not killed, neither was he crucified. So it is saying that the Bible has lied to say that Jesus was crucified. That's what this Quran is saying. That's what this surah is saying, that the Bible has lied for saying that Jesus was crucified. And the crucifixion of Jesus is very, very important in the Christian faith, because our salvation is also on the crucifixion of Jesus. The crucifixion of Jesus proves the Bible to be correct. In Galatians chapter 3, the Bible makes it clear that he became the curse for us because he was hanged on the tree. For cursed is everyone who is hanged on the tree. So the curse of the law does not have effect on Christians anymore, because Christ has already taken that curse away, being the curse for us. So we are saved. We are no more under the curse, because he was crucified. So you see, it is very, very necessary for all those who want to leave the curse. And if you don't come to Christ, it means you've not been reconciled to God. So the crucifixion of Jesus is very, very important. Yet the Quran says it is not important that Christ was not crucified. If Christ was not crucified, it means the Bible is a lie. So we want to see today if Christ was truly crucified or if he was not crucified. And I will be basing my arguments today on 3 points. I will use the Quran to prove that the Quran has nothing to say about the crucifixion of Jesus, that Jesus was actually crucified, and the Quran cannot disprove it. And I will use history to prove that Jesus was crucified, and I will go to the Bible to prove that Jesus was crucified. First, the Quran. Let's use the Quran to show that Jesus was actually crucified. Let's use the Quran to show that Jesus was actually crucified. I would like us to consider 3 translations of Surah chapter 4, verse 157. You know, sometimes I hear some Muslims apologetics, when they are arguing with Christians, they will say that Christians do not have one Bible, that we have different Bible. And when you tell them to bring out different Bible, they bring out translations. The King James Version, which is a translation, they bring out the NIV, which is a translation, they bring out the ASV, they bring out the ESV, they bring out the Amplified, and they tell you that this Bible are not saying the same thing. Therefore, the Christians do not have one Bible. But it is, and they can't tell that to me, because I will show them clearly that even Quran has different translation. So we'll be looking at 3 different translations of the Quran and what it has to say about Surah chapter 4, verse 157, which is the basic passage that tells the Muslim that Christ was not crucified. So the first one is Sahih International. He said, "And for their saying, indeed, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. And they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but another," I want you to get that. He said, "but another was made to resemble him to them." So that is, God replaced Jesus and brought in someone else to die in the place of Jesus. This is interesting, because the Muslims will say that no man can die for the sin of another. So if a man cannot die for another, who did God use to replace Jesus? It means that person has already died in the place of Jesus, and they eat themselves with their own hands. Then Peter said, "And because of their saying," the same passage, "we slew the Messiah, Jesus the son of Mary, Allah's messenger. They slew him not, nor crucified him, but appeared so unto them." So this passage did not say, this translation, Peter, did not say that Muhammad and that Jesus was changed. Rather, I said it appeared so to them. So it appeared so to them. All the judgment appeared so to them, as if they were in a trance, as if they were dreaming, and they were just deluded. God was deceiving them. They hung someone on the cross, and to them they were hanging someone. Nobody was there, and the people sat down and were looking at the man that has been hung, and they saw them putting the inscription, "the King of the Jews," and they were like, "this person is Jesus." Meanwhile, it is not Jesus. And all through the time, they did not know it was Jesus. Even up until the time he died, they still did not know it was Jesus. The Roman soldiers went to take the body down. They did not know it was Jesus. They laid him in the tomb. They did not know it was Jesus. He resurrected from the tomb. They did not know it was Jesus. You see how foolish it is? So Peter said God made it to appear unto them. And Muhammad Sawa, I hope I pronounced the name well, said, "And their statement," the same passage, "that they murdered Jesus the son of Mary, the messenger of God, where in fact they could not have murdered him or crucified him. They, in fact, murdered someone else by mistake." Wow, this is interesting. So we have three translations of the Quran, and they do not say the same thing regarding the crucifixion of Jesus. While Sahih International says that someone else was made to resemble him, Pictor said it was made to appear unto them. They were deluded, they were deceived by God. And Muhammad Sawar said they mistakenly killed someone else in place of Jesus. If they actually mistakenly killed someone else in place of Jesus, where did the man Jesus go to? They should have known that, oh, this is someone else. Oh, we've killed Joseph of Arimathea, we've killed Joseph of Arimathea. Let's look for Jesus. How did Jesus escape the mammoth crowd? So the Muslims have a lot to answer as regard this. They have so much to answer as regard it. So some Muslims, like Pictor, was put to shame and didn't want to put the fact that the text itself makes it clear that somebody else was made to be in place of Jesus. And Muhammad Sawa was ashamed also of his Quran, that he did not want to say what was in the text, that someone else was made to resemble Jesus. Rather, I said they mistakenly killed him, and that is not in the text of the Quran. That is not in the text of the Quran. Sahih International captures what is in the Quran. Someone else was made to resemble him. So now, Muslims should ask themselves this question. Does it make sense that God deceived the people all through? Does it make sense that God deceived them when they were taking him to the place of the cross? God deceived them when they were taking the man up to put on the cross. God deceived them when the man died and they went to take out the man to put in the tomb. God deceived them all through. Does it even make sense at all that God could deceive them to stay all through in that deceit? Everybody, all through. God could deceive them. And no historian ever came out to say they thought they did this. After all, they were deceived. Later on, they should understand that they've been deceived. And no historian ever came out to say, oh, at this time, these people thought they killed Jesus. Meanwhile, they did not kill Jesus. And they should also ask themselves, does it make sense that God changed who was on the cross? If God actually changed who was on the cross, let's follow Sahih International now, that someone else was made to resemble him. If God changed the person who was on the cross, does it make sense that these people would not see that they are hanging someone else who is not Jesus? And the man who was being hung on the cross, pierced, he should have shouted, I'm not Jesus, I'm not the man. And they should have looked for Jesus. So the man kept short all the time. They were torturing him. He didn't say anything. He became dumb, and he could not even make gesture to show that it was not Jesus. Does it make sense at all? I want the Muslims to be rational in this. They should ask their Quran. Does it make sense? This thing this text is saying, does it make sense? And when did God change who was on the cross? Was it when they were taking the person up, or before? When did he change it? That the people did not notice that someone has been replaced, and the person never shouted that he is in Jesus. And is it just for God to change Jesus at that time? Is it just for God to take an innocent man to replace Jesus? Is it just for God to have done that? I don't think the God I know would do that. Allah may do that, but God that I know would never do that. So now let's go to the second, which is using history to prove that Jesus was actually crucified. It's so sad that Muslims do not think, they do not reason, they do not want to use their brain, and they just want to take the Quran blindly. If not, why will they not go through history and other books to try to see if truly Jesus was crucified? They should have gone far. Taking the Quran and just believing the Quran based on the Quran saying Jesus was not crucified has put the Muslim into so much problem that they've not been able to come out of. So I will look at about two historians and a writer to prove that Jesus was actually crucified. The first person is Flavius Josephus, a Jewish historian who was alive around AD 47 to AD 100. This was a time where Jesus was alive. This was just during within a century of Jesus' crucifixion. So this man knew so much about the event that happened because he was alive at that time. Muhammad came so many years after, about 600 years after. But this man was around the same period, the same century that Jesus crucified. So the news was still there. It's possible for him to verify. Could still ask some old people and they will tell him this thing actually happened. Now, Joseph was said, there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, and he continued to say the name Christian was named from him. So Josephus said, Pilate condemned this man called Jesus to the cross. He was crucified. Pilate testified to this, that he was crucified in the antiquities of the Jews. He testified to this, that he was crucified. And then we move on to the next historian that I want to use to prove that Jesus was actually crucified. And that is Tacitus, in his work, The Annals, written in AD 115. But the same period, it's very possible for him to verify things because it's still about 100 years. So there are still some people he can meet and they'll say, my dad told me this, my mom told me this, I was very small, I was very young when this happened. Or there are people he would meet and they would tell him these things. There are sources he could verify for. And he said, Christos, which is Christ, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. And the extreme penalty was crucifixion. So Jesus suffered crucifixion, and Tacitus acknowledged that Jesus suffered crucifixion. And a Greek writer of old, Lucian of Samosata, in his work, The Passing of Peregrinus, made it clear that Jesus was crucified. So this man was also around at that period. So these were historians close to the period, and they all testified that this thing actually happened. So why would Muslims who came so many years after say he wasn't crucified, when people who lived around that time testified that it actually happened? So the Muslims, they have a very big work to do. The big work they should do, the big work they have to do, is first to ask themselves the questions I've placed to them regarding the Quran. If it makes sense, what the passage of the Quran says in 4:157, if it makes sense. And they have to disprove these historians by going back to history to prove that Jesus was not crucified. And if crucifixion was a practice at the time of Jesus, then they have nothing to say. So now let's go to the third one, which is using the Bible to prove that Jesus was actually crucified. The first thing using the Bible is to make it clear to my Muslim friends that the Quran actually verifies that the Bible is the word of God in Surah chapter 4 verse 53. And in Surah chapter 4 verse 136, it makes it clear that we can still have faith, we can still have trust in the Bible. In Surah chapter 4 verse 136. And in Surah chapter 15 verse 9, it makes it clear that Allah is able to guide the Bible from error. So if in any way the Bible should contain error, it means Allah is not powerful enough to do his work. So that's the first thing I want them to know. So anything the Bible says, they have to believe it. They have to believe it, because their Quran has already told them, believe the Bible. So the Bible makes it clear that Jesus was crucified. And Jesus, it was prophesied in Psalm 22 verse 16, said, for dogs have surrounded me. The congregation of wicked has enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. Talking about the death of Jesus, said, they pierced my hands and my feet. And in John chapter 20 verse 27, when Jesus came to meet his disciples, and Thomas, the doubting Thomas, was there, he said, reach your finger. This was Jesus talking to Thomas. Reach your finger and look at my hands, and reach your hand here and put at my side. Do not be unbelieving, but be believing. Jesus had to tell Thomas, look at my hands. Touch it, touch it. It was pierced, touch it. So fulfilling what was said in Psalm chapter 22, verse 16. So just the same way Jesus told Thomas, do not be unbelieving, but be believing, I will tell the Muslims, do not be unbelieving, but be believing. And also Jesus himself prophesied in Matthew 20, 18 to 19, that he will be crucified. He said, behold, we go up to Jerusalem, talking with his apostles, and the Son of Man shall be betrayed unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the Gentiles, to mock and to scourge and to crucify him, and the third day he shall arise. So this place said, Jesus prophesied that he will be crucified. And in Matthew chapter 27, verse 35, we see that this was fulfilled. And they crucified him and parted his garment. And verse 37 said, then there were two thieves crucified with him, one on the left and one on the right. He wasn't the only one crucified on that day. Three of them, two thieves with a righteous man. And the righteous man was right there in the middle, at the middle rather. So the Bible claims and proves that Jesus was actually crucified. So now it is for the Muslims to go to prove to us that the Bible is lying. And if they say the Bible is lying, it means that the Quran is lying also. Now I want to take you to a special event that proves the crucifixion of Jesus. A very special event indeed. On the day of Pentecost, just a few days after the crucifixion of Christ, when the memory was still very fresh in the minds of everyone present, and most probably visitors will have been told the story that some days back a man who helped others couldn't help himself, and a man who wanted to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days could not come down from the Roman tree. And a man who called himself the Son of God was forsaken by God, that he died and he claimed to be the Son of God, he even claimed to be God. Visitors must have heard this story of this man called Jesus. But Peter was so bold that he stood among them, and they were in thousands, They all came for the feast of the Pentecost. And Peter stood among them. These were people who knew the events. The event happened just some few days back. And Peter said to them, he said, the man you crucified, he ascended and is now seated as both Lord and Christ. Peter told them on the day of Pentecost, just a few days after the crucifixion of Christ, that the man you crucified is ascended and is now both Lord and Christ. And the Bible said these people were pricked in their heart. They were scared and they said, men and brethren, what shall we do? If Peter was lying, they should have told Peter at that moment that Peter was a liar. But these people did not say Peter was a liar. Rather, they were pricked in their heart. They were scared. They knew they'd done something wrong. They could not tell Peter, you are a liar. So, for Peter to stand up and tell them this, and for them to not tell Peter, for them to not reprove Peter, it means Peter was saying the truth, that Christ was crucified. Now, some persons who want to say, oh, that's in the Bible, I don't know believe the Bible, fine. If in this event, the people reproved Peter, if they had told Peter, no, we want to argue with you, this man was not crucified. The person who crucified was the wrong one. We mistakenly crucified someone else. A historian should have written it down. This event proves clearly that Jesus was crucified. So, beloved, I think I have proven that Jesus was actually crucified, and I've used these 3 points, the Quran, history, and the Bible to prove it. Thank you, remain blessed, and God bless you. If you're a Christian, I want you to keep defending the Christian faith. And if you're a Muslim, I want you to rethink, for Islam can never save you. The only place you get salvation is in Christianity. If you have any question or any argument on anything that I have been saying, then you can try to reach me. So let's settle it out. Let's talk about it. And also I will pray with you to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, and to share. God bless you. Take care.